Hello, everyone. Welcome back. It's Space Engineers Plus Me, episode 72. I'm Enigmaus, and today we got a lot done. Since the last episode, we got an awful lot done. There was a part of me that was hoping that we would get the entire sphere closed in, the inner sphere of our space station. I don't feel bad that we're not quite halfway there because, relatively speaking, we've still got a lot done. We got an awful lot done. The last episode, we had a 1/8 section of the sphere blocked in just with cubes. So we had to go around first of all and refine that, kind of sculpt it a little bit with some of the angled blocks and see if we couldn't come up with something that didn't look quite so sphere made out of cubes. I guess you could say that's basically what it boils down to. Fewer angles, kind of drawing at your eye, smooth out some sections, and then there were some areas that actually came out looking kind of interesting, even though they weren't necessarily smooth, that we'll take a closer look at in a little while. Once we had that done and welded and, carefully went through and made sure everything was symmetrical the way that we wanted it to be, then we could make the blueprint and start copying it around and then welding up the blueprint and getting things done so much faster than if we were trying to do it block by block with our hand drill. We made a little construction ship. We're not going to feature it in this episode because it's extremely basic. It was more slap it together and get something together so that I can get this welding done, and by no means a finished product. So we're going to leave it in service for a while and probably end up making some modifications to it. And then if it comes out to be something interesting, then definitely we'll spend a little time looking at it and release a blueprint. But for now, you'll be able to see it in action. Anyways, it's just a silly little yellow construction ship. The benefit of the construction ship for me primarily is that it can carry a lot more. And I found out the hard way that this thing can be very, very heavy when it's fully loaded. It's over 800,000 kilograms when it's fully loaded with steel plates. And we actually used all of those steel plates and had to go back for more. That's what blew my mind. That's the one thing that's kind of a minor dilemma right now, is the amount of resources that we're going through. Building this station is way more than I thought it would be, which is not a big deal. Iron isn't hard to find. It's not hard to mine. We can start scavenging more of the Atlas. Yeah, you heard me say more. We've already started in on the poor old girl. But, we have different options as far as that goes. One of the things, in addition to just getting everything welded up, that I noticed is that the walls in certain parts of the sphere are quite thick, and you have to be a little bit careful as you're going through and welding them to make sure that you're not just welding the outer blocks and leaving the inside hollow because you weren't going deep enough with the welders to get the inside blocks welded first. But if you do, and I do, trust me, I miss stuff all the time, it's a neat little trick that you can go around and find where there are seams, like the little metal seams from the edges of blocks in places where you wouldn't expect to find them, and then those are your hint that you missed a block underneath, just having that little seam, which allowed me to go around after we had basically done 95% of the welding and find these little pockets that I missed and fix them, and still have that section that we had just welded from the blueprint done in a fraction of the time it would have taken us if we were doing it by hand. So the blueprint in conjunction with the construction ship is definitely a really good way to go. And also, if you align your welders properly, you can weld more blocks at the same time than you can with the manual welder, even though it takes a little bit longer per block. Kind of balances out, so you're not really losing speed, but you're gaining cargo capacity and generally getting things done a lot faster with the cargo ship. So that's the basics of what we've been doing, and what we've got now is 3 sections complete. The original section, of course, from which we made the blueprint, and then 2 more that we welded up, and you can see now the third one that we're going to be doing from blueprints is all lined up and ready to go. We just have to start welding. Now, one of the things that happened when I was kind of traveling around is with the construction ship welding things is I guess I bumped the station, or more specifically pushed it, because it started drifting. And I didn't realize it had started drifting until it had very gently collided with the Atlas. to the extent that I realized that I had to move the Atlas out of the way. So that's why it's way over there now. And then I had to get some thrusters on this thing with a gyroscope so that we could get it to stop drifting, because I was afraid it was going to end up in the atmosphere somewhere of Mars or a moon, even not necessarily the atmosphere, but the gravity well. Definitely had to get it to stop. So I put 6 large ion thrusters that are their sole purpose in life is just to keep the station from moving. That's all they're there for. The other thing that I noticed is that the way blueprints are being handled now is sometimes a little bit confusing, because we noticed this actually previously when we were working on the Atlas and the different components for the Atlas, is that some things, when projected from a projector, would be shown as their completed selves instead of the sort of holographic kind of semi-transparent or translucent, I guess you could say, the translucent blocks that you see here, which could kind of confuse things a little bit when you come down to an area like this. Like, this is the hub section, I guess would be one of the best ways to describe it. And everything that we do here is lined up relative to this block in the middle so that we get that proper alignment going all the way around with the different blocks. Now, when we want to change the orientation, we don't have to change the position, we just have to change how it's rotated, and everything lines up. But you come down here and we've got this is the actual reactor, but then we've got a projector inside a reactor. Now, is this our projector with the reactor projected on top of it, or what's going on? And then we look back and say, okay, that's the reactor, so this is the projected reactor with the thing. Or is this the projected reactor and that's the real one with the projector inside of it? Hey, it's just life in projector land when we've got overlapping structures. You can see here we've got, there's our control panel that we can use to set up everything and change all the parameters and stuff, but that's the projected one. Here's the real one on the solid block. Sometimes I just get confused. You can only weld so many blocks before your brain turns to mush. That's the way it is, and I apologize for the confusion, but there's not that I can do about it right now. Now, let's take a look at a couple of the details. There were a couple of aesthetic details that I wanted to point out that it surprised me. It was completely unintentional. It was not by design, but I really, really liked it. This is one example of the interior of the sphere. Now, the original plan, when I started filling this section out, is we started on the outer edges of this section when we were doing the sculpting. And then we worked our way in, and that was the easiest way to keep everything symmetrical, because if you make one mistake somewhere along the line, everything goes out of whack. But if you kind of keep things simple, do them in small strips all the way around, and then just kind of work your way in, it comes out very, very nice. But the original plan in the back of my mind was to fill in, we'll just give you an example here, these guys here with... I don't have any steel plates, but you get the idea, with the corresponding blocks, and then this whole section would have been smooth. But just looking at it, it's just got a look to it that I found really kind of nice. I liked it, so I left it that way intentionally, and now you can see it's duplicated all the way around. Most of it should be visible from, or most of at least one of these should be visible from anywhere within the inner sphere, depending on how we do the interior. But it was one of those things that I was just like, hey, that was a lucky accident, because it made it a hell of a lot easier. And then the outside is very similar. One of the things about doing circles in a game that's all about cubes is that it's almost impossible to make a sphere. In fact, it's numerically impossible to make a proper geometrically accurate sphere when you've only got 3 angles to work with. We've got 90 degrees, 45 degrees, and 22.5 degrees. Circle needs all of the angles in between. So given that we don't have access to blocks that allow us to do that, we sometimes have to make some compromises. And again, it becomes a case of smoothing things out so that there are fewer angles drawing at your eye. If you look at like this big flat section here, it used to be like basically steps out of the large light armor cubes Going all the way down here, there was a lot more going on, and it tended to be a little bit distracting, but as soon as you smooth it out, it starts to take on a more refined appearance. But what we ended up with is sort of this last element here, which again, it's perfectly symmetrical. It's like a triangle that's the same thing on every side, and it looks kind of neat. It's almost like a logo or something that has been emblazoned on the sphere, even though it's not. But it's, again, one of those lucky accidents where I looked at it as it was taking shape, and I was like, wow, I'm just going to leave that exactly as it is. I could have made a few more adjustments. I could have added some more blocks in with the goal of smoothing it out more. But in this case, I thought it was kind of neat. So we kept it, and it's going to be duplicated all the way around. And that's what I've been working on. So upcoming immediate plans are I'll probably finish up this section here. We'll have half of the inner sphere done. We're going to look at setting up some of our machines in the inner sphere, but I want to make sure that this time, I did make a very concentrated effort to plan it with the Atlas. I don't want to make it sound like I just threw crap in there without thinking about it, but the same thing is we learned a lot of stuff from the Atlas, and some of it came after we built the Atlas, which was the inventory distribution system we came up with. So I want to make sure that things are planned and executed. So it's going to take a little bit longer than some machines, not a lot. We're not talking about weeks and weeks just to set up the machine area. But once I get some machines in here, once we get everything sort of set up and running a little bit with half of the inner sphere, and we start cranking out some more steel plates, then we'll continue the build. In the meantime, I'll make a decision about what we're going to do about how we're going to get those steel plates, whether we're going to, I'm thinking at this point in time, what I'm thinking is that we're going to take the Spectre Omni down to the moon, and we're going to set up temporary mining outposts like we had on the Ice Lake, where we have a container up top and then we run conveyor tubes down to wherever we end up mining. That seemed to work really well. It's not expensive. It's effective. It allows us to focus more on mining and less on managing our inventory. We can just send it up top and then we can pick it up with the ship later. And then we'll drop it off here for processing. And I think that's going to be our best option to get the materials that we need to continue with the build. The reason why I want to go down to the moon and do it is because platinum. We still need platinum. There's a never-ending need for platinum, so if we can set ourselves up so that we're accumulating that alongside the iron, it means that we're going to be able to have thrusters for our next ship, which is going to need a lot of ion thrusters because it's going to be a little bit on the large side. We're by no means running out of things to do. So the next episode, we're probably going to be taking a look at what I've done to acquire more materials to complete the inner sphere. We may have some noteworthy progress done on the machine area in the sphere, and then we'll go from there. We'll kind of decide from episode to episode what we're going to focus on next, but I'm just so happy that we've got a big circle, half circle to play in. We almost need a space skateboard now so we can kind of just go down and around and do all that other stuff. Anyways, if you want to be notified when I add the next episode, as always, you can subscribe to my channel or follow me on social media. Links for social media in the information box below the video. Feel free to leave your comments and feedback. Thanks for watching, guys, and take care.